Norfolk, Virginia is known for its incredible neighborhoods. It's craftsman style, colonial style, Victorian style houses and old neighborhoods full of character. It attracts many people from across the entire country and world. It's also a big destination for military, for businesses, people coming for family, beaches, all sorts of reasons. But the areas here are so dramatically different from one part of the city to the other. And it's very confusing for people that move to Norfolk to figure out where they should move. There are neighborhoods that are really cheap, a lot higher price, everything in between, but there are a lot of different pockets of places that look amazing but may not be as much. Or the other way around. Or there are also hidden gems. They're a lot cheaper. All the different types of neighborhoods, but it can be very, very confusing in Norfolk. So what I decided to do today was rank the areas, grade them in a grading scale from D all the way up to A, and actually A+, which is my favorite area in Norfolk. Grade them based on different things, based on pricing, based on things to do, shopping, what the areas might feel like, potential spots for value, a lot of things that make an area feel in demand or not. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to figure out what neighborhoods and areas are best for you. And because that's really the main important thing here. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone. I'm a top 1% real estate agent in the Norfolk area. I love helping people relocate to the Norfolk city and area around Norfolk. And I specialize in helping people relocate to the Norfolk city and the area around Norfolk. A D grade or a C grade doesn't mean it's a bad area, as well as places that are in the A's or A+. They may not be the right spots for you either. So the whole idea is to find the right balance and find these spots that make the most sense based on what specific things you are looking for, which is my whole goal in making this video. So we're going to start in the D grades and go up from there, starting with the D. There are a few areas in here. One is an area you probably haven't heard about before, Compostela and Berkeley. And if you zoom out, looking at the map, there's Virginia Beach on one side. Norfolk is right next to Virginia Beach. And in this southern part, you see that in the bottom part of Norfolk, people don't realize that Norfolk doesn't just stop at the Elizabeth River shoreline here. It goes across down to Berkeley and Compostela over here. And this is one of those D spots to me. So one of the pros to Berkeley and Compostela is the price range. You'll find a lot of houses in Berkeley and Compostela in the 200s, 300s, and even new construction in the $400,000 price range, which is unheard of in most of the rest of Hampton Roads. And you'll see the styles of houses in here are very, like they've got that Victorian and got that craftsman style back in 100-year-old, 90-year-old, 80-year-old houses, sometimes Cape Cod, you'll find in other parts of Norfolk. And that kind of adds to when you see online those houses, those pictures, you might think, okay, well, it's got some character to these houses. So if you want a house, like a Victorian style house that has some character and went a lot cheaper, this is the place to find it. And you could find those houses in here in the 300s, 350, 375, or $400,000 price range. Now that's on the positive side. On the flip side, there are some newer houses that really I don't think have been taken care of super well, because what you'll find is in a place like Berkeley and Compostela, a lot of these areas, if you look overhead, a lot of these areas around Compostela and Berkeley here, some builders would come in here and find vacant lots. And because the lots were so cheap, they could build them and then resell them for a lot cheaper also. Well, that new construction created this idea of, I've got a lot of new construction that's going to be coming into this area. So if I buy into this area, there's going to be a lot more growth happening soon. Well, what happened was when you have neighborhoods that have these vacant lots in the midst of a bunch of old houses, there usually aren't enough houses that are built on vacant lots built at the same time to greatly transform an area. So what happens is, I've helped people buy houses in Compostela and Berkeley back 20 years ago, new construction, and those houses 20 years ago are now 20 years older, but they're still around a bunch of 90, 100-year-old houses, and you don't really see that much of a change that people might be buying into and expecting. So that happens a lot in different parts of town, but this can happen in a place like Compostela and Berkeley. So you'll see some houses that are 15, 20 years old. That was a very, very popular time to build houses in this area. You'll still see some newer construction, but again, it feels kind of like a tired, kind of run down part of town in a lot of places. Some of the yards just aren't kept up as nice. There isn't a lot around Berkeley and Compostela. You'll find that there are a couple that the tunnel is close by, which I guess is a positive for traveling, but there's a lot of traffic that comes through here because of the tunnel. This area is mostly Maury and Lake Taylor high school districts in Norfolk, which have some mixed reviews, which you can do some research on the school districts in the area too, but you'll find that Lake Taylor and Maury are drastically different rating-wise if you look on niche.com or greatschools.org. There are some really great little spots in the corners of this, like in this area off Compostela, on the water. Again, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing water access, but you will find a few little nooks and crannies that have little water access points in the corners. But again, if you're getting a house that's on the water or even that's off the water and looking just at the pictures, you might be expecting something that might be in Ghent or another place in Norfolk that I might talk about soon that is a lot more expensive. But again, there's a reason why the houses are cheaper. So again, shopping, things to do. You're going to find yourself going over to downtown Norfolk to do, like, for example, Scope and all the nightlife that's in Norfolk, and also all the grocery stores that you'll find. Some of them you will find in Ghent. Some you'll find in closer to downtown Norfolk. But most of the grocery stores and shopping you're going to find over even going into Chesapeake down Indian River Road. There's not a lot in the Compostela and Berkeley area shopping-wise. Again, if you find some strip malls, you'll find a few grocery stores here and there, but it's just not a whole lot. So not a lot happening in the area, which is why, again, I think it would be more of a D. But if you want cheaper house, larger house for the price, this might make it a really good option for you. Now, sticking with the D's, going over to the Eastern Norfolk section. Now, there's no real start of East Norfolk and North Norfolk and Central Norfolk, but I call East Norfolk anywhere going over towards 64 near Lake Taylor, closer to Azalea Garden. Now, this area has some spots where you'll find similar types of things where, cheap houses, $250, $375, in that, under $400,000 price range right off of Military Highway. That's one thing. You'll find some that are not necessarily like in the Compostela area. These are built more like in the 50s and 60s mostly. But you'll find some nooks and crannies, that individual streets that are very quiet, they're kind of set apart from the rest of the shopping and the busyness around it. One of the things about Norfolk is that if you look at a whole area, like a general area, and say, well, I don't like the area closer to the boulevard. Virginia Beach Boulevard, for example, is too busy. There are a few streets here and there that you're going to find that are kind of nice little nooks and crannies that, for the price, $350, $360. You can get more in those spots because the area around it may not have the higher comps or comparable sales to justify a higher price. So that can be a positive. That being said, check crime, check just the overall aesthetics around the area, because places around, even going towards the airport, but south of it, there's a railroad track down here. There are a lot of smaller, like mom and pop, like convenience stores and gas stations, things like that. And it just feels, again, tired. Tired's a word that could be used for parts of Eastern Norfolk. And so again, all this is traded for cheaper houses. You can see houses still in here in the 300s. You can see houses in here in the 350 range, or even less, under 300 in some cases. So there is a value to be had in places around here. It's industrial in some parts. It has that older, tired commercial part of town. Now, on the flip side, there are other parts closer to Costco. While there are some spots, even at Military Circle, that Military Circle has been run down, it's basically closed down. And there's some shops around here, but it just feels a little eerie. It just feels weird to me. But around here, especially near Poplar Halls, but going further south, Elizabeth Park and Elizabeth River Shores, these two neighborhoods down here are two of the most underrated neighborhoods in all of Norfolk. Some of the cheapest but awesome waterfront property on the Elizabeth River. Also going over towards Selger Drive down in the south part here. I know someone that lives on the water on the Elizabeth River on this side. Again, price for water, it's going to be hard to beat this. Some of the houses you'll see a lot of brick ranches in neighborhoods like this, because this is when they were built in the 50s and the 60s. Again, personal preference as far as style goes, but again, look at this. Like, you see this in the wintertime, but when the seasons change to spring and summertime, lots of trees that are full of leaves, and I just think it's a great, well-matured neighborhood. So all this is in the southeastern corner. If you're going to look for in the D area, I would keep this area in mind. 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses in the anywhere from like the 14 to 2,300 square foot range. Again, priced anywhere from the 350 up to the 525 price range. But on the water, you're going to see some that are like 6 and 7. But in general, most of the rest of this area is kind of tired. Not a lot of shopping that I'm a huge fan of until you get over to Costco, which, it's one of the benefits of being in here would be you're close to Costco. There's some big boxes up and down Military Highway, but still, all I have to say is this eastern side, this has some hits and misses, and that's one of the reasons why it's a D, a grade on the list. So shifting attention over to the central portion of Norfolk, which is another D grade, which is in the Norview area. That's the area I think is probably, if you're going to say a word, Norview, that kind of encompasses the central portion of Norfolk, all through Sewell's Gardens here, down through I think this is called the 5 Points area, over closer to 64, but over closer even towards Military Highway on the eastern side of it. This whole area is, again, kind of tired. There are houses in here that are pretty cheap though, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, anywhere from like $260 $250 up to new construction for $450. $450 new construction is unheard of, right? But this area is loaded with Cape Cod style houses. And if you don't like Cape Cod, again, you'll find some that are more like brick ranch style, some 2-story. But all through here, again, you're missing a lot of shopping. Walmart's nearby. It's going to still feel tired. And the theme you'll find in Norfolk is that if you're in the central part of the city and even the east side, it will have this kind of old rundown industrial feel to it. And in doing that, you may find some areas, you want to find some spots that are kind of unique little nooks that even though you're in the midst of an area that's around you that feels a bit worn out, there are some neighborhoods that can be some real good value. Again, Larry Moore Lawns right here. Again, $350, $375 in that same general price range. Again, is it going to blow you away? Possibly not. But I think for the price, Meadowbrook, I love for the price. In the fours. Neighborhoods in the back, Hunter's Trail, going back here, some awesome, like secluded spots. This is all this is great, right? Imagine this being in the center of Norfolk. This is Norfolk. And so if you want some land, going back into Hunter's Trail back here, it's hard to find and there aren't too many houses that are back here. But in this, I call it the general central section, you'll find some nooks and crannies in here that I think are great for the price. Otherwise, again, you're not going to find too much unique stuff around here. School districts, Norview High School is your main high school district around here. It's convenient, but again, costs, benefits, I think you're going to be paying a lot less than you might find in other parts of Norfolk. But again, what are you going to get? Weigh those pros and cons out, figure it out, and see what you think. Now we're going to get into the C neighborhoods. There are some a little bit more premium things in these neighborhoods that make them a little bit more in demand, in my opinion, but it depends on what your preferences are. So one of them is Park Place. Now, I've heard some people talk about Park Place. It gets kind of a bad rap, in my opinion. I know that Park Place has, in the past, had a lot of areas that have felt kind of very run down, like other parts of Norfolk that we might talk about. But there are some changes that have happened in Park Place, especially in the southern part, that I see some potential growth happening, some changes happening, which then leads to higher prices. But still, you can find some colonial style, Victorian style in the 3s, 4s. Again, these are going to be a bit higher in price in some cases because they're often larger ones. But that being said, still 3s and 4s is pretty common in Park Place. So while it's not, again, you'll find some similarities to what you might see in Berkeley or over in Compostela, which might be pro or con to you, but it has some of those old, tired industrial feel to them. But it's also closer to other things that are a lot in high demand. And you're going to see the growth. You'll see the restaurants down in the very southern part. The Vale Brewing, that's a great spot. Toast, Union Taco, the Fish and Pig, I just went there a couple weeks ago. And then Hanson Biscuits right here. Newer restaurants and coffee shops. And then going up further north, you're also sandwiched on the top end from Colonial Place, which we'll also talk about later as well. So you'll find some very nice nooks in through here that I think good value, because a lot of these houses, if they're older and they're run down, they might not have the highest price, which means you can get them at a cheaper price and get some rehab potential, get some sweat equity, and you can get a house in here like in the 315 range and maybe rehab it, and then it might be worth 485, that kind of a thing. So that can happen in Park Place. Some good value to be had here. Shopping, not really much in Park Place. Got a Food Line close by, Fresh Market close by. Those are the two closest ones, but not necessarily in Park Place. However, they are close. There are some parks in the middle of the neighborhood also, and you're also close to the zoo. I like the Virginia Zoo a lot. This is a really great zoo for kids. So I think if you want the character of neighborhood that has a lot of those Victorian craftsman style houses, Park Place could be an option to consider, especially in areas like in the 30s, the streets up closer to Colonial Avenue, and maybe even going closer towards the restaurants on the southern part of Park Place as well, but this really depends on the streets. It's definitely a hit and miss depending on which street you're on. The next is downtown Norfolk. Now, downtown Norfolk is not really a spot where people are living for the most part, but there are some condos up and down Monticello. There's also the Rotunda, which is right off of St. Paul's Boulevard, which is a kind of a fun condo, like big round building. Bunch of flats and 2-bedroom, mostly 1-bedroom flats in the Rotunda, but getting a high, you can get a nice view of Norfolk on depending on which side you're on. Downtown Norfolk's right next to you, and so you can see here you're right in downtown Norfolk. Now that's a positive, and there's some historic condos and buildings in here, which I think you can really get a nice kind of a downtown flavor if you live in the area, and you're also walking distance to all the stuff in downtown Granby Street, but you're also closer to Bush Street. You're also in an area that it has a lot of high-rise buildings. Again, high-rise is a loose term. If you're coming from New York, you're going to laugh. This is not really a high-rise, but this is Granby Street in downtown Norfolk, right? You have Granby Theater, other restaurants that are close by, Plaza Azteca, which is a good Mexican restaurant right there. A lot at Codex, another kind of fancy little restaurant there. So you got a lot to do in downtown Norfolk. So your things to do is checked off. One of the things I don't like about downtown Norfolk right now is MacArthur Center Mall. And so if you're in downtown Norfolk, MacArthur Center used to be the prime mall of the area. It was the place. I used to go in the late 90s. When Christmas was amazing at MacArthur Center Mall. I loved MacArthur Center Mall. Well, again, as malls became not popular anymore, it became almost like a big flea market to me, where all the big stores left. And now it's a matter of you got these small town stores and shops that have opened up. It's just way different, and it's not the same as it used to be. And so being around here to me isn't the same nearly as much as it was before, but they're going to be changing this. Norfolk is going to be focusing on doing a lot of renovating and changing of the complexion of what's in the MacArthur Center Mall property. Now, prices in here, you can get condos in here again, 2s, 3s in the rotunda, but I like this area generally speaking. But again, there's some spots that might feel a bit kind of uncomfortable depending on what your preferences are as far as living in downtown. So now let's go to the B's. The B grades in Norfolk. There are several that I do like a lot. One is going to be up on the north side, which is Ocean View. Ocean View is a really great beach for what it is. What it is a cheap beach. And I'll show you kind of like the view from the beach. You find a lot of those big kind of almost like those 4 or 5 bedroom houses. You'll find some condos over here. You'll find some older, kind of like the old 40s style houses. Because back, 60, 70, 80 years ago, there was a lot different in Ocean View. And so this area felt a lot different, looked a lot different. In the last 15 to 20 years, before then, it was kind of hit and miss. It was a little sketchy to me in a lot of places, and it really kind of dropped off. But in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, places like East Beach was built, which we'll talk about here shortly. But new construction was being built in the last 10 to 15 years also. You'll find different parts of Ocean View feel different. Some are awesome. Some are like, this feels kind of old. I'm not sure if I like this or not. And the prices while they're different, East Ocean View is generally a little more expensive than the West Ocean View side, but it's not drastic. So going over to the East Ocean View side, closer to East Beach, areas in here, new construction is going to be anywhere from the $700,000 to $800,000 price range. The Turn is a new development that's been built in the last 3-ish years that is awesome. Townhouses or condos. You can see those. These have been built again recently. And you can get to East Beach. You can get to the beach across the street pretty easily. Coming around here, if you live close to these restaurants, it's great, especially Cova Brewing Company. It's I think my favorite. Good coffee, you can get a beer, some outdoor activities you can have if you bring your kids. It's a real nice spot to have for just kind of enjoy and kind of relax and not have to worry about what your kids are doing as much, So I like Cova Brewing for that reason. We got more restaurants on the south side across the bridge. I like the east side of Ocean View a lot. Now, as you go further over, there's not as much happening on the western side, even going over towards Willoughby Spit. It's a bunch of houses mostly. But again, that being said, there's some decent spots, especially Pinewell. One of my favorite neighborhoods in all of Norfolk is Pinewell, where you're talking $350 to $550 price range, but these tree-lined streets are so awesome, and there aren't too many streets like this in all of Norfolk. But man, look at these trees. I love it so much. And the houses are set off of the main road, which I do like a lot too. So Pinewell's a good one, and Cape Cod style, you're not going to be really busting the budget too super high. So now, again, this is closer to the western side of Ocean View, close to the Ocean View golf course, if you're a golfer. But then if you go back towards the eastern and central sides, this is one thing I want to talk about as far as a drawback. See the Little Creek right here. Little Creek can cause some issues with flooding, and some notable ones. It's not great if the wind blows a certain direction, and of course it rains a lot. So I'd be very careful about the flood situation. Check your flood zones, talk to your real estate agent, just check and see, okay. And again, if you don't have a real estate agent yet, let me know. I love helping people relocate to Norfolk. So you can email me, call me, text me. I've got my contact information in the description, and I can set up a plan for you and help you relocate here. But moving back to Norfolk and Ocean View, things to do, of course, the beach is great, for what it is. A lot of beachfront up and down the Chesapeake Bay. Not as many other things to do off of the water. You can get a little cheaper new construction over here in like the $650,000, $700,000 price range. And houses over here can be anywhere from the condos in the 200s and 300s, open to single family houses starting in the 300s and 400s, and going up into the, you can get single family houses on the water for over $1 million. So there is a wide range all through the Ocean View area. But as a general rule, you're going to find more value in Ocean View as opposed to other beach areas over into the Virginia Beach area. If you're looking for a cheaper option closer to a beach. So that leads us over to the next B neighborhood over closer to the south part, which is Colonial Place right here. So zooming in, you'll see this big peninsula right here. This is Colonial Place, and this is right just north of Park Place. I love Colonial Place because I think it's a nice balance of the style of house. It's got that craftsman style house. It's got a lot of like colonial style houses, tree-lined streets, nice size lots, but not super big. I mean, they're big enough, I guess. That's can be a drawback, though. You'll find some people that aren't super enthused by how big the lots are, but it just depends. But I like the balance. I like the trees. I also like the fact that you can get houses on the water up on Mayflower Road from $550 to $750. So these right here, some awesome views of the Lafayette River back here. Big fan of the Colonial Place area for this reason a lot. The flooding here can be an issue over closer to the eastern side especially, but both sides, even on both creek sides. But I see more issues to me over closer to the east side. So kind of be careful about where you are in the area based on for parking. Off-street parking helps because a lot of the houses in Colonial Place are built up off of the road. So you can kind of see, you take your car and move it off the road, and then see some of these have like a ramp that goes up. So it does help with the flooding dynamic in a lot of cases. But that being said, if you stay in the middle, there are less issues I've heard of with flooding. But, you know, again, as you get closer to the water side, that becomes a thing. Pricing Colonial Place are going to be anywhere from the low 400s, upper 300s sometimes, into the 450 to 5, and then max up into the $600,000 price range, generally speaking. So, again, you'll find other parts of town that have similar houses that are going to be higher in price or lower. But I do like the value for what you're paying, feel of neighborhood, all things considered. I'm a big fan of Colonial Place for that reason, and why I think it's a B in the Norfolk area. Another B area I think that's in Norfolk that it could also, you could argue it's an A, is the Lafayette area. This whole side here on the west side of Tidewater Drive is fantastic. So I'll show you what Lakewood. Lakewood's one of my favorite neighborhoods in Norfolk. Older houses, incredible pine trees. Some of the nooks and crannies you'll find in Norfolk are this way because you have no reason to go back here unless you live here. And so this is like a big cul-de-sac. Very unique houses, but these are going to be priced anywhere from the fives range and the lowest end up into, as you go further back along the water, you're talking over $1 million and 1 point plus along the water, but they are well worth it. It's quiet, it's relaxed, it's quaint. It really sets apart from the rest of Norfolk as far as what the vibe is like. There are other parts of Norfolk that I will mention that also have this feel, but I don't think it has the same price. I think there's some value here that other parts of Norfolk just does not offer. So I do like the vibe of Lakewood. But again, going from there, Lafayette Shores, a newer neighborhood, which is just south of Lakewood. Moving further down from there, Lafayette Residence Park is one of my favorite for the price in the low fours price range. So you're in a spot where it's kind of like that convergence point. And I think the Lafayette Residence Park area, which is right here, has a nice character vibe to it. It has, like, again, those old Victorian craftsman style houses and tree-lined streets that make people want to go after these parts of Norfolk. I love it. And so this is, I think, one of the best values for that type of environment anywhere you'll find in Norfolk as well. So that whole Lafayette Residence Park area, it is a B and almost an A in my book. Another B neighborhood I want to mention to you is Little Creek. And so Little Creek, you see here, so you can see Ward's Corner. Little Creek I see as a B because there's a lot of random stuff going on around here. So Little Creek Road is a really kind of an old, tired street. It's got, you know, like old strip malls that haven't been renovated in decades. You've got apartment complexes that are old. You got it just feels, everything's old. I'm not a big fan of this because it hasn't been renovated recently, and I think it can use some help. But off of Little Creek Road, you'll find some nice neighborhoods. Some of the neighborhoods are kind of like a mixed bag. You'll find some like in the $200 to $300 price range near Titustown. This is called Titustown. There's some several streets down through here that smaller kind of, you know, houses built 25 years ago. Some that have been knocked down. Older houses. This is a mixed bag in a place like Titustown for twos and low threes mostly. But you have areas like that, but then you also, going over, you've got places like over near North Shore, really nice spots too. So I'll just drop a pin here. You'll find, you know, some there kind of almost have a feeling of like a little small piece of Lakewood in some cases, like right around the very edges of this neighborhood. So it's a mixed bag around here. Houses are in the 4s and 5s in some spots, and you can go like 3 or 4 streets over, And then you go down further south into Algonquin and Riverfront, over through here, all through here. It's really cool, but again, a little bit more expensive, like 7, 8, a million. Those are apartments, but you have houses on the water. You've got real lush green foresty areas and neighborhoods. I'm gonna drive out. I'm gonna pull out here and see if I can show you a good example. Like Algonquin's a great example. These roads wind. It can be kind of confusing, but man, you're just plopped in and you're surrounded by trees and really unique houses, big houses. But again, these are going to be 8, 9, less than that, sometimes 7s. But a lot of these are going to be unique and cool, bigger, 3,000 plus square foot in some cases. So it's a mixed bag in and around through Little Creek, which is why I have it as a B area. Let's go to the A's. There are a few A areas in Norfolk that I think you need to pay attention to. There's some good ones. Number one is going to be Azalea Garden. I love Azalea Garden. It is one of my most underrated portions of Norfolk, period. This is Azalea Garden right here. So this whole section right here, I single it out because I think for the price, for what you can get, all things considered, is one of my favorite parts of town. Because you can get a house, like for example in Glengarriff, awesome neighborhood. Very few houses sell in Glengarriff. The water is amazing for the price. These houses can be anywhere like even in the like low 400s, 400, 450, 500, even 550. You know, the bigger ones you'll find they're going to be a little bit higher in price. But look at this tree-lined streets, the sidewalks. It's quiet back here. Also, we're close across the street from the Norfolk Botanical Gardens, which is massive flower, museum, like this activity location, I guess is what you call it. It's a gardens. I just like Azalea Garden because you got some surprise little nooks and crannies. This is like the definition of a gem nook in Norfolk. Because the gardens. Drop a pin here. I know people that live on Moratone Road. And again, you almost see like most of Norfolk, a lot of older houses, right? These are more contemporary. Again, relatively speaking, we're not seeing too many new construction over here, but it's a lot different vibe over here in the gardens as opposed to the rest of Norfolk. And so you can find a newer house in a place like the Gardens and pay still only like in the 6s and maybe even in the 5s or low 7s in some cases for a house in the Gardens, as opposed to you might be paying a lot more than that anywhere else in Norfolk, or anywhere else in Virginia Beach, for example. So I think this is an underrated A neighborhood or area. I think that gets really overlooked, and I think is really worth considering if you want a house in the 4s, 5s, and 6s in Norfolk. Now the next A neighborhood is going over to the west side, over towards the Hampton Boulevard section, in an area called Larchmont. Larchmont is wonderful, wonderful. It's like a magazine. I've done videos about Larchmont before. I've talked about it so many times. It has the cool like balance of style of house, older house, the streets. It's super quiet. It's in demand. It's close to Old Dominion University, but it has water access along the water on the river on the backside. And I'll show you in a minute. It's one of those neighborhoods that people go after in Norfolk, period. The houses check all the boxes. They got 4 or 5 bedrooms in most cases. Houses are going to be priced anywhere from the 4 to 450 price range on the low end, up into the 8 to 850 range. That's kind of that medium range in Larchmont. But as you go higher in price, you'll see them again on the water on the back here in the over $1 million in 1.2, 1.3 price range that faces the Lafayette River. But amazing views, incredible views here across the water. You see here, it's awesome. It's one of the biggest spots in Norfolk that has the most water options with docks. So anytime you can be close to Ghent, but also pay a little bit less than being in Ghent, and also have a real nice like family relaxed atmosphere, I'm a big fan, and that's what Larchmont is. I'm a big fan of Larchmont and Larchmont area. On that note, we're going to go across the water, across the Lafayette River, and go over to the Granby Street area. Granby Street, so this is an area that if you talk about Granby Street, it could mean a lot of different things, because Granby Street goes all the way down towards downtown Norfolk, right? Well, Granby Street, the reason I mentioned Granby Street as the general area is because this area on the north side of Granby Street, there are a lot of places that don't require flood insurance, and I grouped these all together. Similar style houses, still built in the 40s and 50s, sometimes 30s. Not as much as far as like Victorian style in around here, but more like you'll see brick ranches, you'll see some 2-story, you'll see some cool 50s style houses as well. And I do like Talbot Park is a great example, and this is Talbot Park here. Good sidewalks. You got that seclusion as you go further back in the neighborhood, closer to the water. But the trees are fantastic. Further south, River Point, West Belvedere, East Belvedere. This area is the area that needs more flood insurance, but you'll see houses, bigger ones along the water. The similar style of what you find in Talbot Park, for example. So you'll see a theme in most of this part of Granby Street and this part of Norfolk, houses built in similar time periods, similar kind of floor plans, and a little bit wonky. I love the pricing, which you can get in the area, but on this eastern side, over near Cromwell Farms, these streets right here, I think are pretty cool. So there's narrow, they're nothing really super fancy, I guess. But man, the pricing on this side in Cromwell Farms is going to be in the 4s and sometimes even in the upper 3s, because some houses are smaller, even in the mid 3s. So I wouldn't discount the area close to Cromwell Farms at all, because I think you're going to be giving up some lot size. You're giving up a little bit of road, like the frontage. It's not going to feel as wide open. But man, it feels quiet back here. It's relaxed. I love it. One of the things people have an issue with in Norfolk is flooding and concerns of it. And, a lot of the portions around this Granby Street Peninsula here doesn't need much or as much as you might find in other parts of town. I'm a fan of this part of Norfolk a lot. I think just for value purposes, I think it's a really helpful spot to consider if you're looking in the 4s and 5s going to the 6s price range. Now, another A neighborhood I think is awesome, but it's historic, it's gorgeous, is West Freemason. Oh man, I love West Freemason. Not very big. Cobblestone streets though, man, ruins the car shocks, I guess. But man, other than that, I love West Freemason. You're close to downtown Norfolk. It's got so much history. Some single-family houses, some massive ones, some ginormous, and some buildings, some condo developments in here, or older buildings that have been converted into condos. The Cure Coffee House and coffee shop I love. It's not very big, but I love it. So if you live in West Freemason, this is probably going to be a pretty commonly visited location. So West Freemason is, I think, the best balance of quiet, relaxed, historic, but also close to downtown and not having to deal with all the downtown hustle and bustle. It feels totally different in West Freemason, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Drawbacks are going to be, you'll still find some issues with getting out just because it takes a little while because the cobblestones in some streets can be annoying if you don't like that type of thing. Not as much shopping close by, so that can be a drawback. You got to find yourself going over to Ghent to do all that mostly. But as a general rule, big fan of West Freemason. Price-wise, starting, I've seen them in the upper 2s for small condos in the $300 price range. Single-family houses could be $7 to $1 million and up. I'd say it's one of the most underrated and overlooked parts of Norfolk there is. So I do rate West Freemason an A in Norfolk. And then the crown jewel of Norfolk. Where do you think it is? I've mentioned it several times already, but man, Ghent is it, right? Now, Ghent includes, I'm going to include West Ghent in there. I'm including Chelsea in here. I'm including this whole area around The Hague in here. Ghent is awesome, and it's got the character of houses that people are looking for, the Victorian, the Craftsman. A lot of German over closer to The Hague, like more of that European style over around Mowbray Arch. Totally different vibe down here, but just all the history, all the styles of houses are very different, and I love it. So it's the character, it's the vibe of the neighborhoods, it's the restaurants, it's the walkability, it's all of that that people want and people will go after if they're coming to the Norfolk area. They want this. This is what makes what defines Norfolk. But also it defines it price-wise. It is going to find in houses in detached houses in Ghent. We're going to start in mostly the 5s and 6s and up, $1 million and up into the middle of Ghent. But on the flip side, going over to West Ghent and Chelsea, this is a good value over here. You can get houses in here maybe $50,000 less than over on the proper Ghent side. So I like this side. If you're checking out Ghent and want a better option, a little bit cheaper, I would consider West Ghent for that reason. Some weirder houses back here, but in general, it's a similar vibe to what you'll find in Ghent, but maybe a little bit quieter. So maybe more narrow streets, though. It might be a little bit more of an annoyance. But again, you're going to get a little bit of savings in exchange for that. Also going down into The Hague, great views of the water. Now, a big drawback here is, I hope I can find it, is the flooding is a real thing, and there are some spots all closer to the shoreline that, especially right here, I think is a good example. There are some spots right here that during the worst parts of flooding, these areas are going to flood, not just inches, but feet in some cases up around this Mowbray Arch section. Flooding is very scattered, but it's way more common in Norfolk than anywhere else in Hampton Roads. So just definitely check if you're looking for a house in Ghent, in West Ghent, in The Hague, anywhere around here. Let's go back to pricing again, just to make sure you understand the ins and outs of the dynamics here, because in the Ghent proper, you're talking mostly in the 6-7 on the low end, up into the 8s to 1.3, 1.4 price range in central Ghent. But going over to West Ghent, that changes over a little bit down. It shifts down. Maybe, the lower end might be 550 instead of 6 to 650. The higher end might be, 1.1 instead of 1.3, that kind of a thing. So the pricing can change. It shifts a little bit, but in general, both sides are going to be in that same kind of 550 to 1.3, $1.4 million range. But in The Hague, there are big houses up around Colonial Avenue and Botetourt. Let's see if I can show you a few of these. Some big ones that line up and down the street. So the lower end of Colonial, for example, it has some majestic older houses that just transcend any other part of the area. So these can be up even well over $1 million, 1.5 and up if they're renovated especially. And so your pricing just varies based on condition, based on size, and based on history in a lot of cases too. It's just a one-of-a-kind part of town. It checks all the boxes, things to do, restaurants, shopping, walkability, the history of the houses, the styles. You can find all those in Ghent, and it's why it's my A-plus area in Norfolk. So if you have any other questions about relocating to Norfolk, any specific nuanced detail in the area, I love talking about this area. I like getting into the details. So if you want to relocate here, let me know. I love helping people relocate to the area. It's what I do. We can create a plan that can help you, give you some context about places to focus on, a plan of action to relocate starting from where you are now, which may be knowing nothing, all the way up to feeling like a local in the Norfolk area. You can also download my relocation guide in the description as well as my contact info is also in the description. You can email me, call me, and text me at any point, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.